Welcome to the Au Jus. I'm your host, Beef Loaf. This show is being powered by From the 108 and FromThe108.com, where you can get all of our content top to bottom, blogs, podcasts, and videos, including the world-famous Sunday Soak. You can also get all of our merch there as well, including the infamous Wave Sucks and hashtag 108 in garbs. Currently, we have a Wake Me for the Parade koozie selling at FromThe108.com. It's $5. Go get one. Go get 10 of them. It's the kind of thing that'll never go out of style, especially when you're kicking Rick and Kenny on the arse on the way out. This show is powered by you, loyal 108 supporter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to tickle the undercarriage in the process. Like, comment, turn on notifications, and most definitely super chat, because that's how we get paid, and that's how we continue to make the content you know and love. Tonight's guest. She's the in-game stadium host for the Chicago White Sox. It also works for 670 The Scores, a member of Chicago Bulls radio network, handling everything from pre and post to in-game updates, and most importantly, related to betting content for BetMGM. Alyssa Bergamini, welcome to the Au Jus.
Thank you. I love that photo. That was last season, the first game of the season.
Yeah.
But their season's going a little bit better this year. They have
a little bit better.
Offense.
They can't. I was going to say, they were starting to score a little bit. Then the quarterback gets hurt against Michigan State. And now they've got the backup guy in there. So it's like Brian Ferentz is always on the hot seat. Like he just can't get the offense rolling no matter what it is. I
know. And I know your wife went to Iowa as well.
She did. That's right. Yes. She's
so do you guys watch the games together? Is she into it?
Yes, generally we do. We didn't this week because she had some event that she was going to, but generally we watch the games. She's way more into it and knows way more about the teams and players. I'm just there kind of for emotional support, high fives and screaming if we need it, like a little extra there, but the Michigan State game was awesome. We came home from the Sox game, we caught the second half of it, and it was incredible to watch. No, we're planning to go to the Northwestern game at Wrigley. We have tickets to go to that, so that should be a lot of fun.
I was going to go to that, but there's a Bulls game, so I would of course love to go to the tailgate, but I don't know if I want to talk on the radio totally fast. Wrigley, how they do the packages where it's anything you could drink. It's like $200. So you want to get what you're paying for. So I'm like, I'm going to bow out of this one, but I will be watching.
Probably a smart move. Now, I was going to mess with you about this picture because one of my signatures of this show, you're my 32nd guest on this show. It's a one-on-one guest show. I mess with them with the picture. I will pick the most ridiculous picture of you I could find on the internet. You, however, though, for whatever reason, I don't know if you threaten your sister and your mom. You don't. This is like the craziest picture I could find of you. So, you do a good job of keeping it locked down. I'll say that.
I don't have a lot on the internet that are crazy. I don't even know if my camera roll, if I have crazy ones, but I'll make sure to make that a priority moving forward.
Just for you. Just something fun. Just something fun. I'll catch it. The thing you can always do to people, and I don't want to do that. Like you could always go if anyone live streams anything, you could just screenshot them when they're at an awkward moment or whatever. And I've done that to people before, but I don't want to do that to you. It's give you a hard time. Now, one thing you're welcome. One thing we're getting on the same page about this past weekend, I was at Chicago Cut on Friday night, and I put a picture of the menu out there, and I said, what appetizers? And you were one of the first people to respond. So what's your go-to appetizer, Chicago Cut?
Well, then I saw everyone else has the same love for the lobster cargo as I do. I mean, that stuff is when you watch the butter being poured on, I kind of look away with one eye. It is delicious, and you can't get that anywhere else. So I would say that is a staple. And I know you guys do your 108 weight loss challenge, so that would not be something I'd recommend, but it's okay here and there. Balance.
Right. A little bit. Yeah, it is all about balance. I agree with you. In fact, it was funny. My brother and his wife, I don't know if they've ever been to Chicago Cut. And so when they started ordering appetizers, because we were like, everyone pick an appetizer and we'll just we'll share. And they started ordering. I'm thinking, man, no one's ordering lobster cargo. That's going to have to be mine because how could they go without it? And they were like, they absolutely loved it. It might be the best appetizer in the city, let alone that restaurant. It might be the best one in the city.
Good. The key is to not go there with a lot of people because then how they split it up evenly. So then if it's just you and one other person, then you get a lot.
That's right.
You get 2 of the lobster cargos instead of half.
Exactly. I got lucky this time because my daughter was with us and she didn't want it. So I was able to have two shares of it. Yeah, exactly. She didn't miss out.
Yeah, that would be my top. Go on.
That'd be number one there. How about in the whole city? Is it up there too for that?
Yes. But I was gonna say my other favorite next time you go as well, the crab cakes. If you want to just stick with that family, the fish family there.
Oh, absolutely. No, yeah. We're kind of down with everything. We had we didn't have crab cakes this time. We had the let's see, we had the crab and avocado. We had the tuna tartare, and then we also got we split up burrata and heirloom tomatoes. Okay. And I normally love burrata. This burrata was just okay in my opinion, but the rest of the appetizers were really good.
They're not an Italian restaurant. They're just more steak, potatoes, fish.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Staying on the fairway. Let's get to this drink right here. Drew Bogue says 2 goats of White Sox fandom. Cheers, Alyssa and Beef.
Hello, Drew.
Thank you, Drew. Appreciate you.
Wait, why did I not have a beverage? I know better.
I don't instruct. I don't want to. I don't know what people got going on. But I'm just gonna have a glass of white wine while we have this
that looks
discussion.
So crisp and delicious, and now I'm jealous. So maybe afterwards I'll have one.
That's right. Next time, Alyssa, I wanted to have you on because you have an interesting career. And I don't know how much it gets delved into kind of on shows like these. I've had interviews with Chris Tannehill and Shane Reardon and a bunch of people in Chicago media just to hear about how they came about. And to me, your career is absolutely fascinating. So my first question for you is, you're a Marist grad. You went to Iowa, as we established. Have you always aspired to be in media? Has this career always been on your mind since you were high school, college?
So I will say at Marist, my strongest classes, the teachers I loved the most connected with were my English and writing courses and journalism classes. So I had, hi Mom, she's watching on her 85-inch TV.
I love it. Hi Rhonda, how you doing?
I had this amazing high school teacher, Miss Mansky. She was my English teacher, and she also went to the University of Iowa. So when I was looking for colleges to go to, you go to the schools and you visit. I did a little bit of the educational visit and then the party visit. But I went to Iowa. I wanted to go to a Big Ten school, somewhere that had a strong journalism class, somewhere not too far. 3 hours is perfect. It's, not too close, not too far. So loved Iowa campus just from the start. So journalism was always on my mind. And then once I got to the University of Iowa, they have a journalism program that you have to apply and get into. So once I got into that, I was just locked in and, wanted to get my hands on anything I could on campus. So they had a student-run TV station. So when I look back on those tapes that I have, I was shooting all my own content, editing, writing, cringy, but that's how you learn. So I worked at the TV station. I covered news. I actually started out in weather. They needed a weather girl, one day, and I'm like, I'll do it. So that's really how I got started. I worked at the newspaper as well. So, once I was at Iowa, great connections. I really, took the opportunity while I was in school. And then during the summers, I would, of course, come back home, to Chicago, live in southwest suburbs at the time. And I just did as many internships as I could. So there was one summer that I interned at Fox 32 in the sports department. So I was logging games, which I don't think I'm that old, but
so
really,
what does that mean? What does logging games mean? I don't even know what that means. What is it?
So I would have to watch, say it was a White Sox game, from the very first pitch till the end, logging the time code and the actual play, so that when the highlights are getting cut for the 9 p.m. newscast, they can look and see, Paul Konerko hit a home run, in the second inning, and this was the time code. So that's when you're an intern, and this was in 2012. That's what I was doing. So I was logging games. I would get to go to some of the games and, shoot a stand-up just to have for real and practice. So that's really where I fell in love with it too, was internship. So everything I took, away from college, then I would bring home for the summer and learn as much as I can and make, the best connections possible. I also interned at iHeartRadio, which is actually the competitor for The Score. So it's Kiss FM, not B96 is B96 is, with The Score and that station. So it's kind of funny that now I'm on the other side, but I worked in radio and promotions, And then the internship where I think really gave me the best, I don't know, people that I met that I am, still working with today was at Comcast Sportsnet, which is now NBC Sports Chicago. So I had an internship, for one summer, and I was with 9 other interns, and one of them was Taylor Rooks, who's on Amazon Prime now.
Oh, wow.
Brooke
Okay.
Fletcher, who does the rally. So I was among all these amazing people. I'm like, this is so cool. You get to meet cool people. I get to go to, whether it's a Blackhawks games, that's when they were winning the Stanley Cup. I was going to White Sox games. I was in the locker room, on the field, in the, press box. So I loved it from the start. And my goal was always, I want to work in Chicago sports media, especially going to school in Iowa. Nothing against the state of Iowa, but they don't have professional teams. So I'm like,
right.
I gotta go back home to Chicago, where we have these amazing franchises that are a rich history. And I kind of dipped my toes into everything.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So it sounds like you had a varied experience. You were trying a lot of different stuff, especially back when you said, and back in Iowa, you said, so when you went there, you had to apply once you're already in. So you've already been admitted to school. Right. Then you have to apply to the journalism program. Is there, or media, is there anything special you have to do? Like, are there additional hurdles you have to clear when you're doing that? Is it like you have to put a tape together? Do you have to write stuff? Like, how did that occur?
I know definitely references was a big thing. And then I think I just, I wrote a lot of papers. And like I said, journalism writing was always my strong suit. So I know it was during my freshman year, I think after first semester, that's when you apply. So starting out sophomore year, you really get to go to the classes that you want to go to. Like I remember freshman year taking classes like Stars, Galaxy, and the Universe. And I'm like, what is college? What is this? And then I figured out, I'm like, oh no, you just have to get into a school, find your niche. And that's exactly what I did. And it could be different nowadays. I feel like maybe now you can start out freshman year, just the way that it was programmed when I was there. You can only join your second year.
Okay. And your mom also says good grades. Yeah, I would assume that's a given. Because a lot of times to get into any program, you got to nail the grades, but then you got to have the extra stuff. You got to make sure you do some extra stuff. Now, with regards to this, you mentioned that you were cutting tape, you were going into all different things. Did you, at the time when you're in college, and then also when you're doing internships, I assume, kind of during the summers and then maybe right after college, are you also doing anything like on your own? Like, are you doing YouTube channel? Are you doing podcasts? Are you doing anything like that? Like as an addendum to it? And the reason why I ask this is because I'm just curious. Like, I assume when you're doing an internship, you're not getting a lot of time, like a lot of time on camera. You're doing a lot of the grunt work. I mean, I remember, I'm an accountant. I remember doing my accounting internship. It was a lot of grunt work. I wasn't doing much glamour. So were you doing other things on the side too? Or are the internships more about making the connections?
So I actually missed one of the biggest jobs I had. It was with the White Sox. I was on the Pride Crew. Like, okay. I've been there for 10 seasons now, and I have to really think about, I started there in 2013. So while I was doing internships, I also was doing White Sox. So that's, I mean, as we know, that is my true love, is the Chicago White Sox. And that I was putting myself out there, my face was out there, and now I am the full MC. But I don't know if you remember, a long time ago, each Pride Crew member would have a certain inning where they got to say, you're doing What's Your 20. So I would do like one hit per game. So we were all doing different hits, which is crazy to think about now. So that's probably where I was really able to hone my skills in terms of public speaking and learning mistakes from there, and talking live, because as you guys know, what I say goes immediately on the big screen. So I do have tapes from that as well, and really learned how to talk, use inflection, how to speak in front of a stadium. So again, that was a job, though not an internship, but started with the Pride Crew. Loved the Pride Crew. I was with them for, I think it was about 5 or 6 years, and then I pivoted to being the MC.
That's absolutely awesome. Yeah, I mean, and people go to games, you see the Pride Crew, they're throwing T-shirts, they're running around doing different things, promotions there. One last question about kind of coming up in the industry, and then I want to get fully into in stadium hosting because it's so interesting to me. But what would you recommend someone doing today? How is this landscape different than let's say a decade ago when you were first starting on the Pride Crew and you're doing internships and stuff? How do you see it different, and what would you recommend to someone who's coming along in your kind of in your path today?
I actually just spoke with the Colorado journalism class. There was like 50 kids and they were all on Zoom, and half of them had their camera on, half off. But there were a lot of really good questions. And I said to them, it's considered new media is so instrumental now. So I didn't have TikTok. Twitter was really not a thing, not even Instagram. Like Instagram was just meant to filter your picture. So I would say now, obviously be careful with social media, but show your brand. So use it as your brand. That's probably why you couldn't find a lot of silly pictures of me, because I try to make my social media just somewhat professional, fun, and keep it a nice brand that I have. But you can be creative with using all these different outlets that we have now. So really putting yourself out there and making those connections, whether it is TikTok. And hey, I think that really has taken off for a lot of people. When someone watches a video, when you're watching a show, a movie, or someone's resume reel, you decide within the first 3 seconds, hey, I'm going to continue to listen to this person and watch this, or I'm going to tune out. And I'm sure this is something that having a podcast yourself. So if you are putting content out there, make your videos, make your content attention grabbing, but it doesn't have to be, you don't have to make it silly, make it whatever you want to make it, but make it yourself, make it your own.
That's great advice. I love that idea. Now you get into the in-game hosting job, and you're kind of now you're going to be talking live. And you mentioned it right off the bat. There's no second takes. You're doing this in front of a live audience. There are between 10 and 40,000 people in front of you. You first take this job. What are some of the initial pressures or like your initial concerns about doing this on a daily basis?
So all of my scripts that I get sent, I have amazing bosses. They send me my scripts about 1 to 2 days before, sometimes a little bit before that. I memorize all my own scripts. So I don't know if you guys have realized, but Ryan and I, we don't use cue cards. We're not using any index cards. We have no teleprompter. It is up to us. So everything is in my head. So you have to be focused at these games. And baseball games, I mean, any sport really, but you have to factor in the weather. There are so many crazy cold April games, or it could be super hot like we had this season. So factoring in the weather, just being focused, the distractions around you. I mean, I think I've just put up blinders from working at White Sox of tuning out some crazy fans. So I would say that, the biggest challenge is just to always stay focused, because if you do slip up on a word, that's okay, but you want to keep going, and no one's going to realize that you slipped up as much as you are going to realize it. That's going to be in your head. That's going to be in the back of your mind. So I think just starting out, making sure I wasn't sounding robotic and, memorizing my scripts too much. And I think really what I've learned is to use my personality, show that a little bit more. I think even after the pandemic, just coming back, I'm like, you know what? I already love this job. I love it even more because we lost that year that we got to all be at the stadium together. And I'm like, okay, I don't have to be so serious about this. This is MLB game. We are all outside taking it a sport. There's so much more to life. So I've really tried to, from 2013 until now, just use my personality more and make it my own and connect with the fans.
That's awesome. You, Mrs. Beef wanted me to ask you about when you have to speak and there's like a crowd of people around you, there's Maniac fans yelling and all this stuff. And I think people don't realize who don't go to a lot of games. Like I go to a lot of games. Yes, I see you, Alyssa, and I actually try to not bother you because you'll be on one side of the stadium, and then I know your hit for the next inning is like going to be all the way on the other side. It's going to be in the kids club. And I'm like, I don't even know how they get to these places that fast. But but Mrs. Beef was like, how do you deal with the fans, like the crazy fans around you? How do you like make sure you block that out, continue to do what you're doing, and kind of like to keep the focus?
I just say, oh, how are you? I gotta go to the Kid Zone. But I do have to say though, fans are of course I'm biased towards the White Sox. But they are actually so lovely to me. Like I will have people stop me on the outfield concourse or, as I'm walking to my car and ask for a selfie, and it's so nice. And they just say, thank you for all you do. We, appreciate you here. Working with the White Sox still. So it doesn't really bother me. All I really care about is I want to get to my spot within 3 outs. And even with the pitch clock, that made it a little bit harder.
Yeah, right.
So like you said, like I can be behind home plate doing something in section 132, 133, and then I have to get to the kid zone. So if I'm ever out of breath speaking, that is exactly why. But I try to, and then just talk. So yeah, I don't know. I've just become very accustomed to doing my job, getting where I have to be, and then I could chat with people. I love talking with the fans there and love talking with people there. I mean, I run into so many people that I grew up with, whether it's grade school, high school, knew them from college. So that's one of my favorite parts about, I'm at work and I get to reconnect with people that I haven't seen. So I like when people say hi.
I'm sure. Absolutely. Now we highlighted some of this stuff. You mentioned memorization is important because you're delivering all your scripts. You're not using cue cards. And I do see that in the stadium. You guys do not use cue cards. You're just going off the cuff there. What are some other skills you think are important to being a great in-stadium host, which you most certainly are?
I would say, not that I'm necessarily writing the scripts, but for anyone who wants to get into broadcasting, those scripts just don't necessarily get handed to you. Like, yes, I have to talk about certain sponsors and that I don't want to change too much, but writing is such a strong skill, and that pivots into verbal communication and verbal speaking. So I think if you're a good writer, then you can speak well. And that really comes through in broadcasting. I mean, I learned too, like cutting out the filler words. So when I do the rundown with Gene, for the longest time, he would toss it to me like, let's go to Alyssa. And I'd be like, well, thanks, Gene. Like, I didn't have to say, well. So now I'm just like, thanks, Gene. Just like get to the point. Don't beat around the bush. People don't want to hear that. So I don't know. Going back to what I said, I think writing goes exactly into how you speak and making it engaging for those to listen to, whether it is in stadium, whether it's on television, or especially radio, because that's not visual at all.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. It totally makes sense. But it's not intuitive that writing would be so important for what's basically an audio art, or in some ways a visual art as well. When you're doing it in stadium, it's kind of interesting. I love that tidbit. I was going to ask you with regards to the role, how much creative freedom do you have? Like you mentioned a little bit on the scripts or what you're going to have to say, and maybe cutting some of the language. Can you, are there things like, can you say the Klinko board doesn't work again for the 30th day in a row? Can we not do that bit? Or like how much are you allowed to like adjust kind of on the fly what you're doing in the stadium?
Yeah, well, you bring up a great point, because who would have thought that the Klinko board, a chip, would just constantly get stuck? So I have just had exactly you said, go on the fly. I'm like, oh, let's just push it down. Let's see what you're going to win today.
Because what else are you going to do? It's just sitting there. Like, we laugh every time it happens. And actually, it's entertaining to us. We don't think anything bad of it. We're just kind of funny,
There was a contestant I had probably in July, and it was the home run challenge. And he struck out on all three. And what I'm supposed to do in terms of timing is only give them 3 chances.
Yep.
But I'm a sucker, so I gave this kid a 4th. I'm like, let's go one more, really quick. He smashed it. It went, over the pinwheels, Xfinity. He ran so fast, and then he did a whole somersault that he didn't mean to do. Like, he fell, and I don't know, in terms of being creative, I said something on the spot that was funny, and I could have been like, "Ooh, like he's down," like, but I had to, make it a positive. So in terms of, I really have gone into this job too thinking that something might happen, like some drunk fan coming up or someone doing something crazy behind me. So I always have that in the back of my mind, like, oh, if this happens, what's going to happen next? The high-low game where I'm talking about the players. There was one not that long ago.
Numbers. Yeah.
Yes, that I said the player, and I can't even think of who it was, and the contestant was like, "Who is that? He's on our team." And I'm like, I knew it was a matter of time that was going to happen. And he got it wrong. And I was like, well, that's because you don't know your White Sox players. Like, but you still are walking away with a White Sox prize back. So in terms of creative outlet, I work with what I got. I would love to go back to doing the YouTube segments I did. That was, pre-pandemic with the players, start them, sit them, set them down. That was really fun. And I think people really enjoyed that, seeing the players' personalities, of course, not on the field. So I would love to get back into that. That's, just pushing the right people to let us do that. So, yeah, I'd love to, expand my role, and very grateful for what I do now. But I'd like to do more.
I hear you. And actually, those segments were great. You're right. And I remember you also interviewed, I think, a data analyst in the front office. You interviewed some other people who weren't players necessarily, too. And it was really interesting. I remember this. No, yeah, I remember all this because I was watching all those videos. I remember at the time, it's interesting to get behind and know what these people are like in the players, but also anyone kind of involved in the whole thing, especially if you're a big White Sox fan. You want to see kind of all that stuff. I totally agree.
Right. I would love to do that. Yeah, that was Emily Blady. She was,
Emily Blady,
exactly what you said. With the analytics data department, I mean, she was so interesting to interview, and someone that is behind the scenes but makes such an impact to the players on the field. She was talking about contracts and really how they even sign players. So, I like I said, I gotta figure out who to talk to let me do that. So I'll get back to you on that.
Good idea. I was going to say, if any Sox people are listening or happen to hear this, reach out to Alyssa. Make sure we get that going. With regards to the in-stadium, though, are there any games or promotions or ideas you got on that event? One thing I used to love, and I know they'll never bring it back. They had this little gun that would shoot fly balls, and they would bring fans out on this field. And I remember we were sitting in 108. There was a guy about 3 rows in front of us, drunk off his ass. And they picked him to go out there. So we're laughing. We're like, this guy's not going to catch a single fly ball. This man caught 4 out of 5 fly balls. The only one he didn't catch was shot way over his head. He didn't have a chance. I'm like, now that's a fun Friday night, pull someone out of the crowd. Let's see if you can catch a ball thing. Do you have any of those that you kind of want to bring back or you'd like to see that they used to do?
That was catching flies. That's what it was called.
Catching flies. Okay, that's right.
I loved that one. They did bring back stealing the bases this year, which I really do like. And I like when it's the kids, because they seriously run so hard. I see them after they cannot catch their breath. I'm like, it's okay. We're good. Not one that I would necessarily want to bring back because I don't want to orchestrate it, but I've had some friends and I've chosen them for dancing on the dugout.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like people would be just maybe inappropriate now. I'm not sure, I don't know. I don't know if I want to be the MC for that, but if it's a promotion that I don't have to talk about, maybe Gene could do the play-by-play of it, then I'm down for that.
And we just all get entertained. You don't have to be involved.
Well, we could get all the 108 guys up there. How fun would that be?
That would be a lot of fun, actually. I don't dance. MSS and Trees probably do, but I don't really dance. I'll have to figure out something. I'll have to figure out, I don't know if I have to figure out some robot or something. I'll figure out something if you get us all up there.
Someone said the frog race, feet brace. I'm not sure what that is, but
we're up for it.
Bringing a frog to the stadium? Let's do it.
Yeah, I guess twerking on the dugout. No, I'm not going to twerk. I don't got a caboose like that. That's not my game. Alyssa, you mentioned the length of the season. You even mentioned a fan saying, that guy's on our team. I don't even know who that is. How do you maintain your level of enthusiasm during a frustrating year, especially knowing that you're a real White Sox fan? I don't want to break the fourth wall here, but when you're not working, we'll see you sometimes walking in the concourse just at the game because you want to be at the game. So how does it work for you to shuffle we had all these expectations. It was a bad year. And then you got to put a smile on your face when it's in between innings.
Well, I am such a fan that I go see them in other states.
Right.
So my goal is to knock out all of the MLB ballparks I went to for this season. I actually saw the home opener for Astros when they played the White Sox, and the White Sox won 1-0. And I'm like, this is going to be the best year ever.
Great game. Yes, he's pitched tremendous.
Yeah. I do go on the road and even see them, and people are always like, what are you doing? I ran into Connor McKnight at the airport in Seattle when the White Sox were playing the Mariners, and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to the game. I actually went down. I literally flew down to Seattle by myself. Everyone was doing other things that week, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go see the White Sox, play the Mariners, and there were some other people that I work with at White Sox that were there, and I met up with them. So yes, I am a 100% fan, and I know the number one rule in broadcasting is no cheering on the sidelines, and I absolutely break that to a fault. But I'm fine with that. No cheering in the press box. I also do that. But it's funny. Like the last, I would say, 2 months of the season, everyone kept asking me. They're like, "Oh, how are you doing with White Sox? How are you still going to these games and having a smile on your face?" And you have to look at the big picture. I'm working at a baseball stadium. I do love what I do. I love the people I work with. So I know I keep bringing up, the bosses that I work under, but my whole game presentation staff, I go to work and I have coworkers, but they're also my friends. So I think that really makes a difference about who you're working with, the environment you're working, in, and no one's really negative. You would think that for 101 loss season, but it's one of those things that's known. We know that we have 101 losses now. In April, there was a 10-game losing streak. So I think the beautiful thing about baseball is there's so many games. So, hey, there's a bad loss. There's always going to be another game the next day, during the long season, 162 games, 81 home games. So, I don't know. I just always feel like the best version of myself at White Sox. And I love seeing people like you and running into everyone. And I truly have a good time. And I try to give, 100% to each game, even if it's a shitty game at the end of September.
I love that. It's a very baseball-y approach, too, because it's like, okay, well, yeah, the team's not doing great, but something fun might happen today. Something interesting could happen at the ballpark today. And that's kind of like, as a season ticket holder, that's how I am. I'm like, okay, well, the team's not good, but I'm going to go watch a game today, and something cool and fun might happen. So let's just be ready for it,
Right. And I always take this approach, too. Like, this could be someone's very first baseball game, their very first White Sox game, their very first time in Chicago. So I want them to leave and say, oh my God, that was so much fun. And they don't even care about the score. Like that is out of our control, is what's happening on the field. So I just take the approach of, we're going to be the entertainment here. We're going to make sure that they're having a good time. I think we have the best food out of any ballpark that I've been to. I've been to 16 so far, maybe 17. I have to count that. But I would say we have, just come to the game and have a beer, have a Modelo, eat a Comiskey dog, and just, enjoy the game. The lights just went back on as I said that.
Yeah, it's a shining light on you, because it's absolutely correct with that message. I love that. To dovetail a little bit about off of your fandom, I want you to give a newly minted GM, Chris Getz, one piece of advice. I'm of the boat right now. A lot of people were upset, and it's like, well, they didn't go outside or whatever. But you know what? I'm cautiously optimistic, Alyssa, with Chris so far. It's been a fair amount of action. And so, you know what? I'm not interested to hear him out, but I want to hear, what would you give him as advice moving forward here?
Okay, so really coming from my standpoint, something that I think we all would love to have again is Sox Fest. And I know you're probably asking for more like analytical, but
no, it could be anything.
I just think that sets the tone for the rest of the season, and that has been lacking these past few seasons. Despite the pandemic, I think, that was end of January of 2020, and that was a cool Sox Fest. They had the black carpet. I was, doing interviews with the players, and you could feel the energy there. So I think get back to that, because I think it is impactful, of course, to engage and connect with the fans, because it is such a lovely fan base, and we are so passionate. Like I always say that throughout the season, like White Sox fans are so gritty, passion. Like we want to see our team succeed. So again, as a fan and as an employee, I would just love Sox Fest to simply come back, because it's winter and it's always like, oh, spring is approaching. Baseball will be here not too far away. I don't even care where it's at. Like, I don't even care. I don't care so much. I'm like, Palmer House is really cool, and then they moved it to McCormick Place. I'm like, this now is really cool. I don't care. I'll host it.
Okay.
Sox Fest.
You're on record. Yeah, I think there's a lot of fans that do want it back too, because you're right. That's the connection right there. The fans in the offseason can get connected with the players that they haven't seen in a while, and just the organization as a whole. I mean, bringing back in old players, just seeing other season ticket holders and fans that they normally hang out with that they haven't seen all winter. You know, there's a lot there, and I totally agree with you. I hope that they do make an effort to bring some sort of a Sox Fest back so that these people can all reconnect. That would be great.
Yeah, let's do it. And I also have the most fun going out after on Sox Fest. Because you're finally with everyone and you don't have to work the next day. I mean, my worst hangovers have come from Sox Fest.
Nice.
And the best night. So I just want a really good hangover again.
I mean, see, this is good promotion for Sox Fest. If people like to hang out there. Yeah, I do remember, I didn't go to the full Sox Fest in 2020, but on Thursday night they had a big thing for the full season ticket holders where we got to be in the room with all the players or whatever. And I'm not much for autographs or anything, but just watching the players like chilling by the bar, like house and drinks and like hanging out, I was like, this is cool to just be in this environment. It's just so much fun here. So yeah, I hope they do bring it back. And yes, let's all plan to get hungover at it. Now I wanna shift away from the White Sox quickly here. You're working at 670. How did this Bulls gig come about? How did you become? Yeah, there it is. How did you become part of the Bulls radio network, Alyssa?
So it really happened, I would say, out of nowhere, to be totally honest with you. I would say all of my jobs that I have, I did not necessarily apply for. It really was the people that I knew, that they knew me. Like, for example, White Sox, I was already working there, and there was my co-host that used to be Chris Ackles. He was coaching baseball. He couldn't do something.
He does Notre Dame now, right?
Yeah, yes. And they were like, Alyssa, you do this. You do broadcasting. Do you want to fill in for Chris? So that happened organically. So same thing with the Bulls. Mitch Rosen, who is the program director for 670 The Score, followed me on Twitter, saw me at White Sox games. He is a Southsider himself. So he just simply reached out to me one day and was like, hey, would you be interested in grabbing a cup of coffee with me and just talking about, what you want to do in your career? I'm like, oh, absolutely. So
can't hurt.
It came down to The Score, talked with him, and we really just had a conversation about, my dreams and my aspirations. And I'm like, truly it is to work in Chicago and work in sports media. And I never did radio before. And then I don't know what month I ended up talking with him, but then a month or two goes by, he calls me and he said, hey, would you like to fill in for David Haw on the Mully and Haw show?
I remember this.
I'm like, oh, okay. I knew it was early. I think I got up at like 3 a.m. The show started at 5. And I literally just dove right into it. And I enjoyed it. I don't know. Everyone said I did great. I mean, I did research before, but it is hard talking on radio. You really have to be so well researched, really, talk off the top of your head. You have to know a lot of information. I mean, our girl, Layla Rahimi, she's the best example of someone who's on the radio. And she knows so much. And I always ask her, I'm like, I aspire to be just like you. So started, filling in as co-host here and there. And then I filled in on another show with Spiegel, and that was fun as well. And then he called me again and said, would you like to work on the Bulls radio broadcast and host a segment sponsored by BetMGM? And I should go back a little bit, because during the pandemic, I totally taught myself and asked questions to those that were close around me about sports gambling. I'm like, I'm going to get into this. I have time to learn this.
There we go. Yeah.
And it became legal in Illinois. So I could pull up apps on my phone and actually place a bet. So I learned during that down period of, really nothing going on during the pandemic.
We're all at home.
Yeah, about sports gambling, sports betting. So I should mention that I did go on a few auditions through BetQL, which is, through Odyssey and through The Score. So he knew that I knew what I was doing and talking about. He wasn't just like, hey, get on the Bulls broadcast. So he saw what I could do. But I've told him so many times, and I won't stop saying, I'm like, you really made such an impact on my career and just opening this door for me that I didn't know it was right in front of me, but I didn't know. I didn't know that I was going to love radio so much, and I get to go to the United Center and cover the Bulls games, and then I'm in the studio when they're away, and it's just every time I'm like, this is so cool. I'm like, this is so fun. I try to give 100% and learn as much as I can. And Bulls has been like, it's been so refreshing to work with them because just everyone from the front office to working with Chuck Swirsky and Bill Wennington and you know, Mitch Rosen. It's so awesome to work around awesome people that really want to see you succeed and help you and you know, see you grow.
That's incredible. That's a great, like, you know, little opportunity. Door opens here. You get to slide in there, and I remember hearing you on 670 filling in. I didn't know you were on there. I like happened to flip on the station. I'm like, wait a minute, I know that voice. So I hung around for a little while. I'm like, you did a great job. And I was like, and you mentioned those jobs are really hard. Like everyone's like, oh man, anyone can do that. No, they could not. Talking for 4 hours in a block is impossible. Like I can't even, like, you can't fathom how hard it is to be a Danny Parkins or a Dan Bernstein or whoever who's the talking head. This shit is impossible, you know. And every day they got to do it every day. Like this is like, it's not they're doing their one podcast a week or something like that. Like that's you know, it's so much easier to do that. It's kind of funny. But I did want to. I'm glad you brought up the gambling. You got into the gambling because I was going to ask you how much of the advice you got was from Sam Panayotovich. This is what I need to know. How's my guy Sammy? Did he help influence you? Did he answer questions, or was he a jerk and say, no, I don't want you stealing any of my gambling stuff from me?
No, he did help me. I feel like before it was legal, he was always talking about it, and I'm like, I'll listen to what you're saying, and then I'll learn. I have to give a shout out to Matt Rooney, who is my boyfriend, who really helped me with it. So I've been asking him annoying gambling questions from literally day one, and I'm not embarrassed to ask any questions. So I really learned from him as well. He works in the sports gambling space as well. So we are just, you know, we'll talk about our picks, and ones we lose, ones we win. So it is fun. I
see him doing live streams on Twitter with Patrick Flowers, and he's got costumes on and shit. I see him out there doing goofy stuff.
So I always joke that, like, he's like my producer as well. I just ask him like a zillion questions, and he's not getting paid for it. But no, Sam, I should say Sam was helpful, you know, really early on. You know, he totally dove into the space before I think anyone else was really even thinking about it. And now
really early.
It is simply everywhere. So I love, you know, doing the segments through BetMGM with the Bulls, and then now I'm doing post game. So even with that, I sprinkle in a little bit of gambling, but I'm not trying to, you know, shove it down people's throat and say, you know, all these jargons here and there, because it could be a little bit confusing. So I try to make it entertaining for people, interesting, and like also talking about the actual X's and O's of the game.
Yeah, this is okay. That was a question I wanted to ask Alyssa, because a follow up, because knowing about gambling and making gambling entertainment are very far away from each other, in my personal opinion. I happen to know a lot about gambling. In fact, I made probably half my income gambling from like 2009 to 2014. So, I
see your bet slips.
Well, thank you. But making it entertaining, I hear so many people, and it's tough to make it entertaining. What do you think you got to do to like move it from, oh, here's a pick, to here's why this is interesting to the listener?
So what I do that I think works for me and the listeners, and hopefully it does, I haven't heard anything negative thus far. I try to give 3 picks. So I will do, you know, probably 2. I do 2 player props. So 1 from the Bulls and 1 from the visiting team. And then either, you know, the total points. I don't do money line. I think that is just self-explanatory, or the spread. Yeah. So what I'm doing though, when I'm making those picks, I give a little storyline with it. So I'm not just saying, hey, take DeMar DeRozan over 25.5 points. You know, take DeMar DeRozan over 25.5 points. He has hit this 3 out of his last 4 times. Let's give it a whirl. Right. So
some context,
but also not trying to say so many stats, because who wants to listen to something unless that's your jam? That is the jam for some people.
No, it can get really boring, like listening to all that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So I try to make it, you know, educational, entertaining, but quick and to the point.
Beautiful. I love it. Alyssa, thank you so much for bestowing your knowledge on what it takes to be an in-game host, working Bulls radio, and creating gambling entertainment content. Remember, we aren't trying to be right on the show. We're just trying to understand. Do you have anything you want to plug before you go?
I do, actually.
Let's go.
I am starting my own podcast.
Beautiful. When is this?
I'm not competing with the 108.
I mean, you'd have to age a lot and be highly intoxicated. You don't want to do any of that stuff. So that's.
I can do the latter for sure. I have been compiling a list of, kind of going along with the theme of the broadcasting industry, just people that I worked with or met or have shared these amazing stories that other people I want to hear. And especially I have so many college students, high school students, aspiring broadcasters that reach out to me, or I have friends that reach out to me that say, can you talk to this person? They're my cousin's cousin. They need some advice. So I really want it to be entertaining and educational for, those who are looking to either get in the industry or they simply just want to hear some great Chicago sports stories. So
that's awesome.
I'm going to push that out within the next week or two. It'll be weekly, and I'm always happy to have any guest that wants to be on that can drop some knowledge. So I got to have you guys on.
We'll teach everyone how to make a hot tub show. That's our best thing that we can do. That's awesome news. Alyssa, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I will miss seeing you guys in the off season, but maybe we'll get something together.
Sox Fest. Well, if Sox Fest happens, we bring it together.
Hosted by Beef Loaf and Alyssa Bergamini.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Take care, Alyssa.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye.
You got it. Bye-bye. That was great. Alyssa Bergamini, terrific. I mean, a ton of knowledge, an interesting come-up-and story, like how she kind of got there. A lot of networking, a lot of busting her butt, doing a lot of different jobs there. Next week's guest, no one. I'm taking the goddamn week off, all right? I'm going to take a little rest. And we'll get someone back here in a week after that. Thanks again to Alyssa Bergamini. Thanks to the 108 family who was up in the YouTube comments. Appreciate you smashing the like button, comments, and of course, drinks and tips. Just one of them today. But I love all of you, and we'll see you soon.